smart, she's stylish, she swapped her balance sheets for Balenciaga. It is Lorna Weightman. Hi, I'm so excited for you to be here in the Stella in Rathmines with us.
It is lovely to be here. Thanks for having me on Spotlight. This is so exciting. That was like the intro to like Miss Congeniality or something. I'll take that.
I want everyone just to grab a Prosecco or a coffee and settle in, because you are one of Ireland's most trusted fashion voices. And I know this because you worked with me on Expose well over, oh my God, we're even showing our age, about 14 years ago, when I remember when we started together. And of course, you're still on, television and live television with Ireland AM on a weekly basis. So I suppose the first question is, because a lot of people wouldn't know this, when I said you traded your balance sheets for Balenciaga, it's so true. You started as an accountant.
I did. Like, so long ago, to surmise it, because I could talk for ages about the career change, because it was such a 180.
Yeah.
And it was back in, probably like 2009, back really far, a long time ago. I had qualified as an accountant, and it was a very, very hard, path to go. You had 4 years of exams while you were still working full time. I worked for a big four accounting firm. It was really, really tough environment to be in. I always wanted to work in business all through school. And so getting the education to complement that was a really big priority for me. And once I got into that world, I had just a bit of a rude awakening, in that it was very strict, as it should be.
Of course.
It was very, very pressured. It was quite stressful. And I got to a point where I just could not cope with that, myself. And I was a sensitive, and still am a very sensitive character. I found myself building up a problem with anxiety as a result of the stress. And I thought to myself, I have to make a big change here, both in life and lifestyle, to really help me get over this. And part of that was really finding an out of that career, because it just wasn't, giving me what I needed out of life, which was, job satisfaction, happiness, contentment, all of those things. It wasn't as fulfilling for me as maybe I had thought at the beginning.
What's so important?
Yeah,
I mean, you're talking
so
about
important.
fulfillment. You're talking about, your own, will we call it the mental health section, because ultimately you need to have a job that you enjoy going into every day. And if accounting was not for you and it was causing you such anxiety, then why not choose fashion?
Exactly.
I found pink on today for you.
Do you know that explaining to my dad that I was going to give up a permanent job, like at the tail end of a recession, to go and work as like a fashion stylist? I mean, you can imagine how that conversation went. But I did it very gradually, because I wasn't going to jump from one thing to the other, because I had a very safe permanent job. And there were parts of it I really loved, and I loved the people I worked with as well. And that was very hard to move away from.
But how did you go? Because there's going to be people listening to this going, okay, great. So Lorna went from the balance sheets to, as I said, Balenciaga. But how does someone do that? Yeah, and what was the thought process behind it? Have you always had Vogue in your home? Have you always loved Vanity Fair and fashion and looked at fashion television? Has it always been there?
Yeah, I think it's just an innate thing about me. My mum, my nana were all really big into fashion, and I definitely inherited that. When I was younger, I had a professional modeling contract in my teens. So I was always had my fingers, dipped into the fashion world. But I also wanted to have a really stable career. So it was the two things. And you have this kind of dilemma in your head going, well, I need to be really sensible, but I also want to be really creative. And how do I move from one to the other? And and how did the two balance each other? So I went looking for a part-time position. So I thought, well, if I get a part-time job, I can do part-time my corporate life, and then the other part I can do, fashion stuff, and see how that goes. So thankfully I found something, and I went to work in another corporate environment for 2.5 days a week. And I did that for a couple of years. And that lent itself to me having time to really give this a real go. And you know what? I remember when I handed in my notice in my previous firm, and I said to my boss at the time that, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it.
Yeah.
And I have to give it a try. I owe it to myself to do that. It was probably the most honest thing I think I've ever said in my whole life.
Powerful. It's very authentic, because not always do we allow ourselves do the things we want to do. Even we know it's going to make us happy, but maybe financially there's no gain in it, for argument's sake. Because starting out in fashion, whether you're starting out in film or you're starting out in TV broadcasting, The jobs are scarce.
The jobs are scarce. The money is even more scarce.
True.
And you have to really,
True.
really, think about it. It's like the same if you're going to make a leap of faith into anything different. There has to be some kind of logic there as well to underpin all of that,
I know people are going to also want to know, because I want to know, because it's so far back in my memory now. But, segueing from accountancy and into our first lots of expose together, which you were telling me was about 2007,
2011.
Sorry,
It was
2011. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was that like, stepping onto, I suppose, would you say a set with all us girls and you were fashion styling? I mean, it was brilliant times. I remember we had great times.
We had the best of times. It was the best of times. And it's funny, people still come up to me today when I'm in the supermarket or whatever, and they go, God, I really miss expose. And I go, me too. I really miss expose too. But what I had done was I really loved fashion, and I had always done. And I needed to find an opportunity to throw myself into the industry.
Yeah.
But that wasn't something that was going to get handed to me as someone who had no experience in it. So I had to create that opportunity for myself. And at that stage, blogging was becoming a bit of a form of media.
I remember you were blogging.
I started styleisle.ie, which is still my Instagram handle.
That's
I haven't changed it. And that was my little escape at night. So I would go do the job, then I would come home and write, and I'd research. But also you have to remember, back in 2011, there was no Instagram. Social media didn't have the force that it has now. So in order to get your name out there, you had to go and knock on people's doors, cold call. Really daunting thing to do.
But it's still the same now, right?
Yeah,
anyone has to push.
You still do.
You have to push and hound a bit.
Now you can find someone on social media and you can send them a DM.
True.
People are a little bit more accessible than they were then. And, there was magazines were really leading the way here. So I emailed everybody I could find and I threw myself out there. And I was so lucky, actually. I had a really great response because I'd researched everything that I wanted to write on my blog. So I felt like I was writing something that was quality. And some of the magazine editors emailed me back and said, it's great to hear from you. You're writing online. We have a print magazine, but, we always want to build a community. And I had such a really good reaction to it. And I remember...
I'm glad to hear that.
Social and Personal was the first magazine that ever printed anything about my blog. And I was in the US working actually at the corporate job at the time. And my friend from home sent me a picture and she said, you'll never guess what. I'm like, what? She's like, Social and Personal's got a thing about your blog in their magazine. I said, no way. What? I was so excited. And it was great. And it really was the force that drove me. And Expose came around because I started going to London Fashion Week on my own dime, financing it myself. And it's an expensive thing to do. Getting accreditation as a blogger, going and just making my own content off that. And it was great. And I ran into one of the producers of Expose there, and who came up to me and said, I think you might be Irish. I was like, yeah, let me have a chat with you about, fashion or whatever.
It's lovely that everyone helps each other,
yeah,
isn't it?
It was great. And then it was Kate at the time. And Kate said to me, look, we're always looking for people, voices and, contributors and everything. So let me take your details and, so you can't promise anything. Let's see. And I said, great. And then I did what I always used to do when I was in my corporate life. I was like, I'll take your details as well.
Just to seal the deal. Belt and braces, just in case they never call me.
So it took a while and, but eventually anyway, I got the email from our producer, Debbie O'Donnell, who gave me my first opportunity to get on TV. And I remember it exactly because we were in a shop in Newbridge, you and I, and we were filming. You have better memory than me. Yeah. All of these things stay with me. And I got sent down to Newbridge to cover a shop opening. And you were there, and then in my head, I'm going around thinking, do I have to list off the prices off the top of my head? Do I have to do this? And I was learning all this stuff off.
Was I the first person on camera?
I know. So this is
an
even
exclusive and I didn't even know it. This is great news.
So this is even
this
more
is mommy brain, of course. Yeah, because I remember nothing anymore. But
we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a few minutes. Oh, that's great.
And that was it. And it all kind of took off from there. And it was throwing me into it,
Of course. And
and it
naturally,
really
that's the
was.
best way to
It
go.
was. And it was such a steep learning curve, but I learned so much from the people I was around, and it actually forced me to network a little bit more. You had to get, make friends with brands. You
Yeah,
had to find
of
out, where
course.
do you get clothes, modeling agencies. There were so many different things, finding locations to film in. There was so many moving parts when it came to making that TV show, but it was fabulous. And I'm so grateful for those years that it definitely threw me into the spotlight in fashion. And I hold that show on such a pedestal in my career. And it was
Of
amazing.
course.
And it really propelled me into the industry in a way I could never have imagined. But that is really what has sustained my career. It's getting that experience, really.
Well, of course, that's an amazing segue into talking about Ireland AM because, we see you on Ireland AM every week. It's a busy job. You're styling, you're bringing clothes, and people don't understand the graft that goes on behind the scenes. And many, many moons ago, I won't say how long ago, I started off with Catherine Condell. I thought I wanted to be a stylist, and it was an amazing experience. I think I only did it once or twice, but the work that goes in behind the scenes is ferocious because it's
Yeah.
not just what you see in the photograph or on stage or on film. You have to gather so many different pieces. As you said yourself, so many moving parts.
Yeah. And it's not like there's a team. I am team.
Yeah.
There's like, if there was a loyalty program for the M50 toll, I really reckon I would qualify for it. Should be some like VIP package you can get. I spent all my time driving around, picking up the clothes. You're organizing each and every segment. It's almost like you become a bit of a mini producer. But
Yeah,
I love
sure.
that because you have such creative input into what you do. Um, and I come up with the themes, I get them approved by the production team. Then I go off and find all the clothes that work for that, which takes an awful lot of research.
Of course.
You've got to find the right brand. You've got to get them on board. Then you've got to drive the length of the country to pick them up.
So even for a segment that's say, 7-8 minutes
Yeah.
long where you've 4 or 5 models coming out, how long does it take to produce that, for argument's sake?
I think if you were to, like, I start about 2 weeks before it.
Right.
So 2 weeks before the date, and I start putting together all the concepts, cast the right models for it to make sure that we've got the right fit, the right vibe for the segment. We've got an amazing group of models that work on the show with us, and they help make my job so easy as well. And it's from there. It goes into millions of emails
Note-taking.
constantly
Yeah.
replying to emails,
Prices.
prices. I write all of the notes. I put in all the presenter notes to say, we're going to talk about, let's say, how to pack for a summer holiday. So in this look, I'm going to outline X, Y, and Z. So they get a really good feel as to what I'm going to talk about.
And do you obviously cherry pick on themes like for argument's sake, or if it was the Oscars, or it
Yeah.
might be just because it's coming into summer, it might be summer wear or bright colours or sustainable fashion. I mean, that's a big buzzword at the moment as well.
Absolutely. And we try and kind of get that in as much as we can. And also, I've learned an awful lot, actually, just to kind of segue into sustainability for a second. I've learned an awful lot about it, over the last number of years. And I think it's important to say that everyone's got their own, version of sustainability, and they all do their own little bit, And I think if you start with a little bit, then it can add up and have a really positive impact. I am such a fan of rewearing, restyling,
Good.
getting
Mhm.
something, no matter where it comes from, as long as you're really wearing it and getting the use out of it. I think that's really important. I have so many things, like this blazer, which is from Next. I think I have it since last year. I must wear it at least 3 times a week. People get sick of me wearing this white blazer, but I get so much wear out of it. And that's kind of how I see my version of sustainability,
Well,
is making sure I'm wearing what I have.
I agree because, sometimes it's really interesting to take your closet apart and break it down and decide, right, I'm going to wear this pink with something else, or, have images in your head of how you're going to wear your fashion. I mean, as a busy working mom, I don't always get time, to make nice, stylish choices. It's just whatever's on the floor, like a wardrobe, really. But ultimately, yeah, sometimes it's nice to take a dip into your closet and say, do you know what, I want to be a bit fashionable today, but I want to rewear and reconsign some of my fashion. And I've done that as well. I've actually offloaded some pieces that are beautiful. They're just not right for me or they didn't fit me at the
Exactly.
time. So what would you say about consignment, sustainability and the landscape of fashion and how that's changed?
I think now that we have, let's say, the likes of standalone shops, let's say like Shoppa Ella, the designer exchange, who will take used bags, pieces, jewelry, accessories. Then you'll have vintage Depop,
Mm.
which are just having an explosion at the moment, where you can do all of that from home. So you can take all the photographs of all the things that you don't want anymore. You can sell them on to someone else, and that piece will go on and have a life with somebody else. But equally, I find so many amazing things on Vinted that I go, there's this green Maj dress that I just didn't buy in a sale. And
Yeah.
I just went, oh, I never got that. I'm really sad I never bought that.
It can make you sad when you
It
don't buy the
popped up.
clothes you love. Yeah.
It popped up on Vinted.
Right.
Someone was selling it for 30 euros. So here now I have the Maj dress I couldn't find 2 years ago. I bought it for 30 euros and now it lives with me.
Well, you know,
so it's amazing,
it
really,
is
what it's done
amazing.
for fashion. You
Well,
know?
I think because, obviously, and I'm sure again, there's going to be people listening that go, really, where do I sell my clothes? I know you've mentioned a few places, but I always thought it was kind of meeting someone in a car park, kind of dodgily out the boot of your car with, your dress or your nice pair of earrings that still have the tags on them. But now there's platforms where people, like even Vestiaire, I've had a good nose on that as well, where, they're pre-loved items that people, again, who are fashionistas that just maybe have either grown tired of them or they just never wore them, or, the way things go. You just think to yourself, let's make money out of what's in my closet. And it used to be a shameful thing, but now it's actually a good thing. And people are starting to do that
It's
now.
a great thing. And I mean, if I look at all of the things I wore pre-baby, some of which I'm never ever going to wear again. Either I emotionally don't like them anymore,
Sure.
or I just physically don't fit in them anymore, and that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
And then I just have a little bit of I have a box, and they go into a box, and then I photograph them, and I put them up on Vinted, and I make a bit of money back on them, which is lovely. And
You're inspiring me.
it's really good. Now, it's time consuming, but if you carve out the time to do it, it's amazing how rewarding it is. And you get messages from people just going, all right, you're selling that for €10, but would you take 8 for it? And you go, yeah, no problem. I'll sell it
So
for
there's
8.
a bit of Del Boy
there's a little
bartering
bit
going on.
But it's great because it is helping the economy to be more circular. And that is
Lovely
great
way
as
of
well.
putting it.
Yeah. And I think also, I'm always been a fan from Exposer days right up to now, is creating more out of what you have. It's amazing the amount of outfits you can create from what you have. You just need the time to sit there and do it. If you have a pair of jeans, there are multiple outfits you can wear with a pair of jeans. And one thing I love about 2024, 2025 is that the nice top and jeans is a thing.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like I'm back in 2002 with my nice jeans, my nice top going out. But that's where we are. It's the simplest form of style. And if you've got an occasion dress, this is probably my number one piece of advice when you are buying something that's good. You don't have a good wardrobe. You have a wardrobe you wear. And if you've got something that you're getting for a wedding, before you buy it, just think about it. Okay, can I wear this 3 or 4 other ways than to this wedding or this, christening or whatever? Can I put a leather jacket over it? Can I swap out the heels for a pair of runners? What are the other ways I can make this work for me? And that's where you get the whole cost per wear coming in, the longevity of your wardrobe, the practicality of your wardrobe. And all of that really underpins what I do on TV. I really try and convey that message that, yeah, here is this lovely coat, or here is this lovely top. You might see me style it this way on our model today, but here's all the other ways you can wear it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, it's just come into my head there about charity shops. I absolutely adore charity shops.
They are
And
worth going in and having a look. You find treasure.
Oh, you find absolute treasure troves. And when I was growing up and my mum's sisters lived in London, I mean, obviously the kind of diversity and, sustainability was thriving as well. Even back then, I think it's slower to have connected here in Ireland, but with Oxfam Bernardo's, St. Vincent de Paul. I mean, honestly, there's so many beautiful clothes that people just, don't want anymore.
Yeah.
Again, don't fit them or they've become jaded with, and they're there all for the taking. And I did a huge clear out before Sarah arrived, and my Deb's dress went, broke my heart. I thought I'd ever get into it again, but I was kind of keeping it for sentimental value. But actually, the release of getting rid of some pieces really helped me as well, because it's letting go of a lot plus space, which is nice.
Plus space, which is always good. But there is like this, I don't know, emotional declutter that happens when you do your wardrobe, And I'm always a person that I have a yes and a no. there should be no maybes, right? Because the maybes are the danger zone, because they're the
Okay.
things that might end up back in your
Yeah, of
wardrobe. And we're back
course.
to the very beginning.
Yeah.
So you have a yes and a no. And you do sometimes just have to break up with something. That's okay. And move on, you know? And then you could, if you are selling, you can take that little bit of pot of money and buy something really good. You know,
Totally true.
there's so many different things you can do, which I love. And like you were saying, maybe we were a little bit later towards the sustainability. I think we're getting there in small ways, you know, and every brand is making an effort to do their thing. And I think that's a really positive thing. I sold my wedding dress. I did. Back in 2012, I sold my wedding dress. So I'd started doing that quite early on. So I think now I've kind of
Oh,
evolved into the everyday
I
stuff.
don't know.
You're
It's
panicking
my
thinking
favorite dress.
about that.
I mean, getting rid of the Deb's dress had me spiraling in
Oh,
anxiety for days and days and days. No, jokes aside. But I mean, just I felt so good in my Deb's dress and I loved it. And I have such fond memories of that time. So
yeah, of
getting rid of my
course.
wedding dress would be,
Well, do you know what I
I don't
realized?
know.
I said, well, do you know what?
But
If I
maybe
ever
it's the
get
right thing to
married
do.
again, it would probably be to somebody else. I'm not going to wear the same dress, you know?
My future ex-husband, as
It's
they
okay.
say.
We're still happily married. It's fine. I don't need another dress yet.
No, but it's nice to think that, you know, you can do that and be okay afterwards and sell it and
Yeah,
be all
but
right.
it is the fashion landscape that we're
It
in
is,
now.
it is,
And it's amazing. And I think Ireland is really coming along in step by step to get there. And I think we are, as a fashion, we are becoming a bit of a more of a fashion destination. And there's so many good things in fashion in Ireland.
Digitally, I want to talk about you because you're such an avid content creator and I'm not the best sometimes. I dip in and out. And obviously, we're both busy moms,
Mhm.
right? So we'll talk about that in a minute. But content wise, you know, feeding the beast, I suppose, every time, especially with fashion, because it's so transient and
Yeah.
so quick. Tell me how that works for you. Do you find that
I find it
hectic?
challenging now.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have to say. At the very beginning, I thought it was great because it was a very new market. It was only at its inception. People hadn't realized that content creation was going to become this big behemoth of advertising that
Mm.
it is
No,
now.
I don't think
And
people realize
no,
that.
I don't know. I certainly didn't as an early adopter of it. And I've moved up so, you know, through so many different versions of Instagram. And then we would have that whole thing with Snapchat. And then, you know, I dipped my toes into that and then came out of that quite quickly. Then we have
I'm behind.
TikTok.
I'm well behind, just so you know.
It
Yeah.
moves so
It
fast.
does.
It moves so fast. I've tried YouTube, didn't really work for me, so I kind of placed that to the side. My blog is no longer there because I've just moved on to something else, you know, that talks to the follower I have now, which is primarily on Instagram. And now the market is so saturated with content creators. You know, I
Mm.
find myself kind of like the L one in the corner
No,
sometimes.
never say that. Don't let the old man in. Not at all.
I
We're
sometimes
always
feel
learning, right?
we're always learning.
We're
So
always learning.
I'm trying to now tap into my demographic. Who is me essentially?
Mhm.
You know, like I'm 43. The follower I have is kind of over 30, and I want to make sure that the content I make is relevant for them and that it's something that they will digest and appreciate. But I've also pivoted into not just taking photographs in nice outfits. I do that every so often. If you're like, oh yeah, I really look good in this, I'm going to take a photograph
Mhm.
of myself and post it up. But I've actually gone back to the styling knowledge I have inherited from other amazing people in our industry, but also what I've learnt through it, to make what I do a bit more educational. So when I'm putting up posts, it's like, right, like for example, when I did recently, which was really successful, was about stripes. People are terrified of stripes.
Yeah.
How do you
Oh,
wear
I
stripes?
don't like stripes.
So I did a whole video on, right, well, here's how you wear stripes. And I hope this might change your mind a little bit and might encourage you to try it.
I'm going to rewatch
So
that.
I'll reshare, don't worry.
Yeah, yeah.
So I want to make sure that that is where my platform is now. So it's using the content to speak to my audience and kind of share a bit of knowledge with them and educate them. And then throw in a little bit of real life along the way as well, which, you know, happens because I've got a toddler who is at the stage now where he just wants to climb on things and open up bags and take down clothes out of the wardrobe. And I could be putting together this really lovely Instagram reel and suddenly there is chocolate covered hands all
I
over
know.
the top. That's just the
I know.
reality I have. And I think it's nice to also show that, to say, oh gosh, I was going to film this, but now I can't because, you know, the spaghetti bolognese all over it and I can't do it. So it's nice to kind of show the reality of it too. And that's where I feel I am in content creation. It's really hard to grow on those platforms now
Mm.
because you try and you try and try and you grow a little bit, then you fall behind a little bit, and you can't let that get to you. And that's a real challenge too.
Absolutely. And, Irish fashion is so indicative of who we are and our
Mm.
presence in the landscape of fashion. I love fashion myself. But, now that I've seen Dior have taken on, our
Jonathan
Irish.
Anderson.
Yeah, I would love to
Yeah.
talk about that as well. But also about the changing climate of Irish fashion. I think, as you rightly said, we are a destination now, Let's talk
Yeah.
about Dior actually, just for a moment.
Well,
Yeah.
Dior, obviously, we all know Dior. It's beautiful, expensive, gorgeous, and luxurious. It's had, several different creative directors in women's wear and menswear, accessories, beauty. Now, Jonathan Anderson, who we're quite proud of as a designer, because not only has he had his own label, JW Anderson, he's been involved in so many others like Loewe. He was creative director of Loewe, which just blew up into, massive proportions while he was at the helm of that. Certainly wasn't a label I'd ever really paid that much attention to. And then
Yeah.
suddenly he made this amazing aesthetic with it. And now we're all over it.
Of course,
So
we're very proud.
we're very proud, just a little bit, can you tell?
Mm.
And now he is creative director across women's wear, menswear, and one, the whole entity that is Dior. And his responsibility is making that creative direction for that brand, which is incredible. It being such an amazing role model. And then we have, back here, we've got Ireland Fashion Week coming up in October, spearheaded by the amazing Ashley McDonnell. And that is going to be absolutely incredible. And hopefully it will help keep the fashion talent here and give them a reason to stay, because we've not lost, but someone who's got real potential graduates from NCAD. Where do they go? They
where
go
do they
to one
go?
of the fashion capitals, because that's where the opportunities are. So I really hope that with amazing role models to show that you can be so amazing in fashion, that you can start here and find your way, through that to get up to, the Dior levels.
Well, you're such a fashion historian as well. I know you love fashion, across the board, but also just to be able to champion Irish fashion like that and say, stay here, be here, stay with us, because hopefully we can root our talent and nurture our talent and nourish them.
We
But,
can.
sometimes there isn't always the platforms. But I think, content creation, digitally, people are obviously making their own fashion and bringing their own labels to fruition across digital platforms as well. But as you rightly said, I have to harken back to where you talked about motherhood with everything plastered in chocolate and sticky fingers everywhere. How does fashion and media combined work with motherhood?
I'm just going to put my head in my hands.
I need you to answer that question for me as well. It's hard going.
I mean, I'm certainly not a professional mother yet after 23 months, I thought working for myself was going to be hard in a career and an industry that I'd no experience. Well, let's just say I've now got this other career, and it's every day throws up something different, as you well know.
Of course, yeah.
But you called it a brilliant chaos.
Oh, that's
Because
nice. Yeah.
it's amazing. Every day he's changing and learning, and it's incredible. But then I come home to my incredibly messy house, and there's stuff everywhere. Like you talked about the floor wardrobe. Like
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I have a house
It's a
drobe.
reality.
The floor, there's stuff everywhere. There's toys everywhere, and but that's the chaos. But the brilliance is just seeing this amazing little human being that is our responsibility. Like, be an absolutely gas man.
And
He's
it's
great.
Arthur, just
It's
because I know
Arthur.
people would love to know his name.
He's
Oh.
Arthur, and he's got a mop of blonde curls, and he's great. And it's initially, before the childcare days, which, that's so hard to come by these days, and it's really expensive as well. But that was a challenge, trying to keep work going and have him.
Because right, as you said, you're up and down the M50,
Yeah. He came
Ireland
everywhere with me.
AM. Oh, right. So, like doing Ireland AM and up and down the country, getting style and doing all this. There's probably a lot of people watching this or listening to this thing to themselves, I'm also a working busy mom.
Yeah.
Maybe I want to transition from my career that's stable and solid and move into fashion. Would you recommend it?
I'd recommend Viva Passion in anything, like whether it's food, beauty, aviation, whatever it is you're into. start with something that you can control yourself. So, for example, the blog has now moved into platforms like Substack, which is just a global online basic database of journalism, which is amazing. Anyone can set up a Substack and write about something that they love. And that's how I started it. It's just the platform has changed. But Substack, thankfully, is there to kind of help, boost your content, share it with other people, get it out there a little bit more. And that's what I would say is, if you've got a passion for something, start with the content, start with the writing, start with the Instagrams, the TikToks. The amount of careers that have now started on the basis of social media is absolutely amazing. But what I would say is, don't bank on it.
Monetary wise and financially.
No,
yeah, of course.
No, you've got to be really sensible about it now, especially when it's really competitive. But if you've got a real niche and you've got a really passionate voice in it, then I think you automatically stand out. I'm a really big fan of manifesting. And it doesn't always work out. And it's not like I sit there going, I'm going to win the lotto. I'm going to win the lotto. It's more
like
about, we all do.
Yeah.
It's about saying, you know what, I would really like to write for a magazine. And it's about the journey to get you there. So if you decide, I can see myself writing in a magazine, then how are you going to get there? Right, you're going to start by writing online on Substacks. You're going to start talking on Instagram. You're going to start making TikToks. And then suddenly the path starts to become a bit more clear for you. And I think that is my advice to anybody who wants to go and give it a go with a passion project.
Oh, that's lovely to hear, because, sometimes people think to themselves, I just don't want to be in this job no more. I'm fed up. I want something a little bit more exciting, a bit more creative, especially if you have a creative brain.
Yeah.
It's very hard to switch that off because, it's a passion that's already burning inside you, and being a creative person and having known you, the guts of 15 years at this stage, what's next for you? We talked about maybe books or, I know you go to all the fashion weeks and you can always go to all them now with Arthur, but, what is your next chapter, do you think? Where do you want to go, considering you're a manifestor?
I'm not a manifestor. Well, one of the things that really underpins everything is future proofing. Now I have a little boy that I am, responsible for. Well, we are responsible for, not just me. I have a husband to help out as well.
About him, of course.
We're completely crazy about him. So every decision now affects his future. And that's, something that has to be considered. It's always been a dream to write a book. I would love to write a book. I've gone through so many different iterations of books. I've never had I've tried to get it across. I've talked to publishers. It's never really worked out.
Okay.
That would be something I would absolutely love to do. I did think, oh my gosh, I'd love to create a label, fashion label with the pieces I think that people will like. That's a very risky business. And because there's so much competition and it requires huge investment, I think I've drawn a line under that. But I wouldn't say no to maybe doing an edit for a brand and saying, right, here's all your pieces, right, here are the things I think people will like, and kind of take those into an edit. I think that's something that I'm currently would love to do. And I think if I get it right, I can make that happen.
Amazing. Well, do you know what? We are actually out of time. Can you believe how quickly?
Oh my God, that was so quick.
It's so quick. There's so much still and more to talk about. But Lorna, thank you so much. I mean, the insight alone just on fashion, but also on motherhood and your journey then, of course, to being on Ireland AM and across all the other platforms and channels. It's been just a joy, I think you're just very inspirational. And, we go way, way, way back. But, you being the fashion voice at the moment is really important. And it's lovely to hear about sustainability. I think that's really good as well.
Thank you so much for having me on Spotlight. I think this has been a cathartic chat for me as well.
Cathartic chat. Well, with coffee and Prosecco outside, so you decide what you want.
Prosecco always.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. A joy to have you on.
My pleasure.